few weeks ago, the front page article on Jehovah's Witnesses' official website, jw.org, read, "What does the Bible say about artificial intelligence?" So, quick rebuttal. Nothing. The Bible does not say anything about computer learning algorithms or ChatGPT. So that was easy, but why was this religious website talking about AI in the first place? On this channel, I provide rebuttals to cults, specifically Jehovah's Witnesses, aka the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Unsurprisingly, I get a lot of comments on YouTube in my emails and DMs from active Jehovah's Witnesses trying to excuse the substance of what I'm saying. But recently, I've encountered a new excuse that I had not previously been hearing over the last couple years. That's not even real, or that was probably just AI. Now, what is that? What is this that they're referring to? That can be anything from a leaked internal video to train elders to a leaked audio recording of a leadership member saying something cringy to old Watchtower articles, which are not currently available on the jw.org website. But unlike a lot of comments I get from current members, these are concerns that I share and have wondered about myself over the last year. I am not an expert in artificial intelligence or anything at all, really, but the thing I pretend to be an expert on for my YouTube channel is combating cult misinformation, and AI presents some pretty obvious challenges for anybody trying to combat misinformation. While Watchtower generates mountains of content on their official website available for anyone to see, often the most damning information comes from whistleblowers within the organization, members who realize they're in a high-control group but are currently trapped due to the group's shunning practices, lack of resources outside the organization, etc. These members sometimes leak internal videos, documents, and audio recordings of materials not intended for the wider public, and these can provide vital information not just for current members who otherwise wouldn't have access to it, but to journalists and lawyers. Leaked copies of the Internal Elders Manual and Circuit Overseer/Branch Guideline. Leaked meetings regarding destroying sensitive documents. These have played key roles in the Australian Royal Commission, the ICSA investigation, and continue to be essential in ongoing investigations of the group. And the concern from whistleblowers, activists, and content creators is that AI presents an opportunity for active members of cults to essentially dismiss credible leaks because they'll just claim it's AI, it's not even real. And so there are two main concerns that I see and that I personally have. One, that active members of Jehovah's Witnesses and any other high control group will be able to easily dismiss credible leaks because they'll just say, that's just AI, I'm not going to trust that. Secondly, even though there hasn't been an AI-generated or assisted fake leak that has come out of the ex-JW community, let alone one that's duped a bunch of people, it does just kind of feel inevitable that that sort of thing will happen eventually. AI voice emulators, for instance, are not perfect, but they can be pretty convincing. And while it's normally easy enough to tell the difference between the president and an AI parody of the president, the issue that we have in the ex-JW community is that Watchtower speakers kind of already all sound like AI anyway.
Welcome to the Always Rejoice Convention of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Are you a parent with children? Do you think Satan wants you to become unclean? Yes.
Does a person have to use their hands to masturbate? For example, say a brother wears an undergarment that's so tight it rubs his penis as he moves around. He gets aroused and even ejaculates. Is he masturbating? Yes, he is.
ChatGPT is really good at generating fake Watchtower articles and JW.org parodies because the articles themselves are already so lifeless and robotic. So that's what this video is about. How can anti-cult whistleblowers ensure our own credibility, make sure that we're not spreading bad information or playing into Watchtower's hand? And for members who may be sneaking a peek at this video, how can you ensure that you're getting good information and not being duped by something that is AI generated or assisted or manipulated? And that's it. Nothing more will be discussed in this video. Nothing controversial, just those two things. The short answer is yesn't. Sort of a good news, bad news situation. It's complicated. So let's start with what I will call the good news of the kingdom? No, of the YouTube channel. Broadly speaking, as AI advances, so too will methods of detecting and mitigating the effectiveness of that AI. That's why these Hollywood strikes are happening right now to begin with. Writers and actors know that studios are going to try and use AI to replace them or pay them less. So they're all striking right now to ensure that that kind of thing can't happen. You know, people are keeping on the watch and proving themselves ready. And there are already resources that you can find with a quick Google search that can help you determine if an image or recording or video has been manipulated or assisted using AI to some degree. So right now, yes, it is possible, say, hypothetically, for a political campaign to use an AI-altered image in a campaign video to make their opponent look bad. But that did happen, and it was caught pretty much immediately because people are aware and concerned about this sort of thing and are keeping an eye on. What about for our purposes, though, as ex-cult internet people? Most former members of Jehovah's Witnesses remember what it's like to be a Jehovah's Witness and remember that phase of being really worried about looking online for information about the group. So we are really worried about what we say because we know that members looking at our stuff will be eager to dismiss everything that we're saying. Nobody's like trying to make a fake secret recording of a governing body meeting using AI-generated voices and trying to pass it off as real. And there are some YouTube channels and TikTok channels who have used these like AI voice things for parody purposes, making obviously fake conversations between governing body members as a joke. But in these videos, they'll put on the screen and in the title that it's AI, that it's parody, and as long as people are upfront about what they're doing and how they're doing it, I don't really see a problem. Next, while AI itself is new, especially modern advancements in it, the "Satan is just spreading lies about us" complaint is as old as the organization itself. In 1939, a former legal counsel for Watchtower, Olin R. Moyle, successfully sued then-leader Judge Rutherford for slander. Moyle resigned from Watchtower, and in his scathing resignation letter were well-documented allegations of Rutherford's drunkenness, vulgarity, and inappropriate behavior. Rutherford took to the Watchtower magazine, calling Moyle's letter false, filled with lies, wicked slander, and libel. Rutherford lost that defamation case, a fact that you will not find on jw.org, and of course, C.T. Russell was calling his opponents agents of Satan before the invention of television. As new technology develops, Watchtower simply folds these into their existing blanket assertion that anything negative about them is being spread by Satan somehow. Put simply, if a member wants to dismiss something you're saying, they'll find a way to do that, and there's no leap of logic too absurd for them to protect their own cult indoctrination. So let's say you show a Jehovah's Witness a damning quote from an old C.T. Russell publication, maybe one that is just silly or awkward or racist or a false prophecy that the organization no longer talks about. They might see that quote and say, well, that's been altered somehow. I don't know that that quote's real. So you show them a PDF scan of the publication that it's from, and they say, well, I think that that scan has been tampered with. I don't know that that PDF scan is real. So then you go on eBay and you order a copy of the book and you show it to them and they say, well, this copy has been altered. Somebody tore out the page and put in a perfect replica. I don't know. I wasn't there in the 1800.
No, it's a trick. It has
Enough
to...
is enough. The fact that the
I
defendant...
am not crazy! I am not crazy. I know he swapped those numbers.
If somebody is not willing to engage in good faith, you can't make them do that. And this is true even of stuff that's just currently on Jehovah's Witnesses Online Resource Center, the Watchtower Online Library. There's a good post on Reddit on the day that I'm recording this from somebody who posted some old Watchtower articles, and they showed the response of PMEs, physically in, mentally in, members of the organization dismissing the post. And like, these are things that are currently on the website. These witnesses could obviously just go to the website and check, but they don't want to do that because if they did check, it might prove to them that their organization is not, in fact, the truth or is capable of saying dumb things and changing their history. So they're not going to look it up. It's just easier for them to dismiss it as AI. This is the thing. You can't force someone to think critically for themselves, and you can't wake someone up from cult indoctrination if they're not sincerely ready to investigate the group's claims in good faith, willing to accept that they may or may not be true. AI is not going to change that one way or the other. AI is a new excuse, but it is just an excuse, and Watchtower has been making similar excuses from before the age of the internet, let alone ChatGPT. Nextly, while leaks are really important for exposing internal stuff that the organization doesn't want in the public and can be important for like journalists and lawyers and stuff, leaks are not necessary for exposing the wrong and contradictory doctrine or the harmful teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses or other cults. I made a video a few months ago about every lie that Watchtower tells about shunning, and 95% of this video was just stuff from the organization's own website. Their doctrine is inherently self-contradictory and harmful. All you need to do is kind of lay it out. That's why websites like JW Facts are really, really effective. They just take existing quotes and old quotes from Watchtower and lay them all out and let them speak for themselves. Like for me, my own waking up process, before I had done an ounce of research online, I had already decided that this wasn't the truth just from reading and rereading the group's contradictory claims for myself. And it's really easy to take for granted that for most of the history of the organization, that's how everybody woke up. That's how everybody realized it wasn't the truth. The internet is relatively new. We now are able to consume this information much more easily, quicker, connect with people. But, until like the late 90s, nobody was waking up through the internet or things like that. Raymond Franz figured it out, and so did everybody before him. As long as there has been Jehovah's Witnesses, there have been ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who have left because they realize it's not the truth. And lastly, not for nothing, AI has been a useful tool for some PMOs, physically in, mentally out people who are kind of stuck in the organization but still want to use their voice to some degree. So they can use things like AI voice alterations or even just AI voice generators, so they type up their script and have an AI voice read it for them, so they don't have to expose their own identity. And like an activist organizer friend of mine used AI to make templates and used it to find a bunch of independent journalists that they could send these templates to generate interest in covering Jehovah's Witnesses. When you're in a high control group, you are under the impression that everybody is trying to pull you out of it, that there's a conspiracy to spread lies about you, and then you leave and you realize, actually, nobody cares about us, and people aren't talking about this enough. We have to raise awareness of it. This is kind of my take on AI for any and all high control groups. Anybody who is a member who wants to dismiss any negative information they're seeing as somehow being manipulated by AI is just going to do that because they're not in a place where they want to sincerely investigate whether or not the truth claims are true. People who were in these groups, like myself, do generally try and take great care to represent things accurately because we remember what it's like to be a questioning member. We know that it's scary and that we were really eager to dismiss stuff if it seemed even a little bit wrong. And we'll do our best, but the reality is that if someone wants to dismiss a clear, credible piece of evidence just because they think it might have been altered or manipulated or created by AI, they're not asking that question in good faith, and we can't make members engage in good faith. One of the primary functions of high control groups is to provide an endless series of bad faith excuses for why you can't trust anyone criticizing them. And this has been a thing since before cell phones, before the internet, and television. What's more, you can't control the media literacy of others. From what I've seen, ex-JWs are very good about marking their AI-assisted parodies as parodies. I make YouTube poop edits of the governing body of JWs all the time, editing a bunch of clips together to make people seem silly has just been ingrained in my pop culture my entire life. Conan did it on his old show. It's been a staple of YouTube from its inception. Colbert does it on his show as a regular feature. But every time I do this, I get comments like, this is manipulative. You're trying to trick JWs. Some JWs are going to think this is real. And like, sorry, no, I don't believe you. If you can sincerely watch the Tim and Eric talk show opening that I did of the Tony Morris thing with this cheesy music playing and like the very obvious edit points, clearly the joke is just to try and make him look silly. If a person can really look at that and think, wow, this is real. This is a real life broadcast. I think that person has a real journey ahead of them, and I do wish them luck, but I don't know what else to do, really. Because unlike what Watchtower says, there is no dedicated group of apostates trying to spread misinformation about Jehovah's Witnesses. In fact, most information is spread unintentionally, and that's the thing I actually am a little concerned about. If you've been on the internet, ever, you've almost certainly seen this Mark Twain quote. If you've been on the internet ever, you've almost certainly seen this Mark Twain quote. God, it's so hard saying Mark Twain quote. Twain quote is hard to say. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still getting its boots on, or some variation of that. And it always says that. And it always says, by Mark Twain. And never has that been more true than in the age of social media. Because, here's the thing, Mark Twain did not say that quote, which means this quote is in and of itself a pretty incredible piece of accidental misinformation that gets spread around. You can go down a real rabbit hole and see that this quote has been attributed to people like Winston Churchill and Thomas Jefferson and Terry Pratchett, but in fact none of them originated this quote, and the reason why it's been spread around and attributed to Mark Twain is because of no real intentional malicious reason. It's not being done because people are trying to spread misinformation about Mark Twain, and this is how misinformation tends to spread. You see a thing that sounds truthy that somebody probably wouldn't lie about, and so you spread it. But people aren't intentionally lying. They're just perpetuating a thing that isn't quite true. It's not like a lie. They didn't lie. They just copied a person who was also wrong, who copied a person who is wrong ad infinitum. Did I use that correctly? I've never really known what any of the ads mean. And this has happened and does happen and keeps happening in the XJW community. And yes, because this is, of course, classically a drama channel, we're going to talk about the TikTok. Now, when you're viewing this in the far-flung future, in the year 3000, in the National Library of Congress on the moon, you probably don't know the context of this, but at the moment when I'm recording this, there was a bit of a kerfuffle caused when some spurious claims about Anthony Morris got spread around TikTok. And really, really spread around. The original video got over 2 million views, which is more than anything that any XJW ever posts, really, outside of documentaries that get posted in full on YouTube. My friend XJW Caleb made a really good video where they specifically go through this person's claims and why they're not necessarily verified or verifiable, and I will link in the description. It's really good. You should watch it. For our purposes, let's just say that the initial claim is basically somebody detailing their own abuse, and they said that this abuse more or less occurred at the hands of Anthony Morris. It's a little unclear if they're saying that Anthony Morris was directly responsible or was responsible because, he's in the governing body, and so everything that happens is kind of his responsibility.
Tony Morris III?
Tony Morris?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Do you need to talk to him?
I think he needs to talk to me. He's responsible for the rape, stalking, and torture of myself, my sisters, and my mother. And I came down here to Lumberton, North Carolina to tell him my goddamn self, sir.
Now, let's be clear. I haven't seen anybody dismissing this person's claims of abuse for themselves. I'm not dismissing that. I think it's very clear that this person's undergone trauma and that they did, in fact, experience abuse at the hands of the organization, and that would not be an extraordinary claim. That's one of the main things that ex-Jehovah's Witnesses try and bring attention to, the way that the organization, like pretty much every other religion, it would seem, covers up abuse that happens within it to protect the reputation of the organization. However, this was not the only claim the person made. The person also claimed things that they had exclusive knowledge of a pedophile ring that encompassed 80,000 Kingdom Halls.
It was so large, it covered 80,000 locations. So in 80,000 locations, children are knowingly being preyed upon by child predators.
And that would be almost every Kingdom Hall. The vast majority of Kingdom Halls would be involved because Jehovah's Witnesses have a little less than 120,000 Kingdom Halls worldwide. This person also claimed that Anthony Morris personally put the hit out to have her house burned down. That classic video of Anthony Morris burning out a match or blowing out a match on stage as part of a visual demonstration because witnesses love props when they give talks. Well, no, it was not just that. It was specifically that he was sending a secret message to his minions to burn her house down. So that's what that video was. It was a code. But she also claimed that the organization burned her house down twice, but that video only exists once. So I don't know what the other one was.
I became a doctor after I got away. And then Tony Morris put an order out for my home to burn down. And he did this by lighting a match and inciting very violent cult members to either burn or bury alive anyone speaking out against child sex abuse, anyone who could know anything or expose it. My house burned down, and then I moved out of state. My house burned down again. I wasn't there either time. I was actually out of state the second time. So, you guys missed.
She claimed that the organization had tried to poison her on multiple occasions and that she was born with no blood, and that's why she needed a blood transfusion.
This is one of the hardest videos for me to make. I've been trying to, pull myself together. So I was born in 1985, and I was born with no blood of my own. I was born with no blood.
I want to be clear. We do not want to be dismissive of anybody's personal stories about their abuse. The issue that I have with this person is that they are not just talking about their own abuse. They're kind of taking ownership of everybody's abuse. They're saying that everybody's abuse in the organization is essentially a result of a secret, highly controlled and operated pedophile ring, which we just don't have any evidence of.
Problem like this, you usually want to go to the dealers. And that's what the Jehovah's Witnesses are. They're the dealers. They manufacture perma-children into livestock.
And in fact, when you think about the implications of what she's saying, a lot of XJWs that we know would currently be involved with the cover-up of this. We have elders leave all the time. We have PMO elders. That's how we get leaked copies of the elders' letters every month. They always leak because we've got just a whole bunch of elders who don't really believe it, but they're stuck, so they leak stuff online. And we have elders who have left and have detailed what it's like to be an elder, and I've interviewed a couple on this channel. Some of the biggest YouTubers are ex-elders who now have channels, and when you think about what they're saying, what this person alleging this is saying, they're saying that, those people, those ex-elders are still lying because they would have known about this and are still, covering up the pedophile ring for some reason. Anyway, these claims are obviously absurd and unverifiable, and I have a real problem with them because they take away agency from other people, other abuse victims, who don't agree with these larger, unfounded claims. But a lot of XJWs signal boosted this. They talked about them on their YouTube channel as if they were real and shut down anybody saying well, hey, even if we know that this person did experience abuse, that doesn't mean that we also know that Anthony Morris is personally responsible for overseeing a pedophile ring where they burn down people's houses. Actually, only just this one person, the magical person who knows all of this secret stuff. And when criticism of this arises, I see people coming to the TikToker's defense oh, are you saying that she's lying? And no, I don't think that she's lying. I think that she thinks that she's right. But that doesn't mean that we can't be critical of the larger unverifiable claims. And that doesn't mean that we're victim shaming. That means that we're trying to be responsible with our platforms. It's really, really hard to get media institutions to take XJWs seriously. There have been approximately 5,000 hard-hitting Scientology documentaries. There's a really popular ex-Scientology channel that I follow that I think currently has more subscribers than there are actual members of Scientology. But Jehovah's Witnesses, they just have a rosy reputation. They're big enough that everybody knows somebody who's a witness, and so media institutions are hesitant to cover it. And if this sort of thing starts to gain traction, conspiratorial claims that we can't possibly verify, and in fact that would seem to impede existing investigations that are happening.
Is he around children here? I'm sure he is. He's incredibly dangerous, and I need people to understand that. There is a nationwide investigation going on right now out of California and Pennsylvania. He is at the heart of it. It's taking way too long. It's not protecting the children that are currently around him. And now that I know where he is and why he was relocated here, I came myself.
Well, then it's just going to screw us over. We're going to get less coverage because any journalist who's doing investigating is going to see, oh, okay, well, YouTuber so-and-so is trying to email me about this, but they also signal boosted the claims that one of the leaders poisoned and burnt down the house of somebody when they have no evidence of it. But also I'm fully aware that I may be making too much out of this. TikTok has a lot of great people on it who make great videos, and I think it's especially good for young people. My issues with TikTok are not any of the people making videos, but in the algorithm itself. The fact that it just feeds you stuff whether you want to see it or not. And that's why the fact that this got 2 million views is something to maybe not be super concerned about. I mean, it got 2 million views, but how many likes did it get? A lot less. And so that would suggest that most people, most people who saw it, didn't hit that like button. They weren't convinced by it, or they didn't even watch it. They just scrolled past it. It's kind of obscure how TikTok even counts a view. So I'm aware that on my end, I may be too concerned about something that ultimately isn't a big deal. People making bold, unsubstantiated claims on TikTok and those bold, unsubstantiated claims being passed around to a bunch of different people is just kind of how TikTok is. That's just how it works, and that's just going to happen. I think the responsibility that, like, if you have a platform in this X called space is to just really double check your stuff. Like, TikTok as an algorithm is going to feed stuff to people no matter what. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be fed. And it doesn't matter if it's true or false. What I think, like, for my purposes on this channel, I just want to make sure that I'm not, like, feeding into this speculation. I would see people in response to this being like, I could see that being true. I would believe it if that was true. And okay, but that's not a reason to believe that something is true. But I sympathize with this completely. So people who are knowers of alt-worldly lore will know that for a while I had an internet stalker. And that was really, scary and freaky. But as that situation was starting to resolve itself, my wife's car got stolen. And then a couple months after that, my bike got stolen. And then a couple months after that, when we were in a different city, still in our same state, my car got stolen. And I had a complete existential meltdown, and I was convinced this is the stalker. This kind of shit would not happen to anybody else. It has to be the stalker, or maybe even that it's Watchtower. Like, that thought absolutely crossed my head, because I was just like, this is impossible. Both our cars got stolen. I got a fucking bike that got stolen. Subscribe to our Patreon. And I was convinced, like, these things are related. But my wife and my more reasonable friends pointed out, like, in your home state of Ohio, there has been a huge surge of carjackings. Like, car theft around the time when this was happening was way, way up. And what was happening to me and Christina was happening to thousands of other people in our home state. It just felt like it had to be a conspiracy that I was embroiled in because, well, like, I'm the main character of my life. Of course it has to do with me and me and me. Our brains are naturally evolved to see patterns. That is a survival mechanism that is true of all humans. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody's mental stability. A fact of human existence is that we see patterns, but sometimes we see patterns that aren't really there. And that's when, if you're not careful, like I wasn't when I was freaking out about both our cars being stolen, like, you can go down a little bit of a conspiracy rabbit hole. None of this is going to make it in. All of which is to say, it's the unintentional spreading of misinformation that I am most concerned about, and it's going to happen. I know that I've done it, and it's just going to happen. And sometimes misinformation is going to be spread to you, and just because you engaged with it by commenting saying, hey, this is misinformation, well, algorithms don't really care one way or another. Engagement is engagement. Negative engagement is still engagement. When people hit the thumbs down on my YouTube videos and witnesses leave 10 comments in a row telling me I'm gay, that only leads to the video getting a boost because engagement is engagement. So there's no real way to stop misinformation from spreading given how algorithms work. But I do think that we can be careful that, like, people with platforms are being careful not to signal boost them. These things are going to spread regardless, so we don't need to help pour lighter fluid on it.
Hey TikTok. Today's comment of the day is, it's disgusting the way churches try to cover sexual abuse. But I don't believe for a minute those going after them are good people. I'm assuming the them is the churches in this. You're right. We're bad people. I'm a very bad person. I don't know if you know this or not, but I successfully scammed a man out of $250,000. A lot of things. I also don't know if you know this, but I'm incredibly violent. Yeah, it's weird. All of the torture and childhood church activities made me incredibly violent when tripped up by something that reminds me of it. So yes, don't. Oh my God, don't believe for a minute any of them are good people. Are you nuts? You can't fight fire with water.
Anyway, I scripted out like the first half of that, but also I'm trying a green screen, and also I'm trying a lot of different things, and this video is probably bad, but I hope you liked it. This week's video brought to you by Capri Sun. Put a little thingy in the thingy and get the sweet, sweet juice inside.